Zack Rinat, thank you so much for joining me at 20-Minute Leaders.
Chag Sameach, Michael.
Chag
It's
Sameach.
great to be here.
Oh yeah, Chag Sameach. So actually, I think we this is actually aired a few weeks after Passover, so Chag Sameach now and Chag Sameach already for the September holidays. In any case.
Yeah, actually, this year, I think we all need to think about the Exodus, and not just in the context of Passover, but a lot bigger picture than that.
100%. So Zach, we only have 20 minutes. It's not nearly enough for what I want to cover. You're one of the most fascinating people that I know and one of the most accomplished entrepreneurs I can ever think of. And I'd love to sort of go through your journey from, all the way back from business school and how you started the variety of various companies and experienced different things throughout your companies. And then I want to move all the way to culture and nonprofits. So let's just start. Who are you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so my journey as an entrepreneur actually started before kind of no business school. Actually started in the 90s when I worked on a project actually to develop a jet fighter in Israel called the Lavi. I was a programmer at the time when I worked on the flight control computer of the Lavi. It was a fascinating project. And then the project was canceled by the Israeli government. And that really made a big impact on me. My life plan was always to come to the United States to get a PhD in computer science. And when I graduated from the Technion in the mid 80s, I actually applied to get a PhD here in the United States, and I was accepted.
Wow.
Then decided that I'm going to work for a couple of years. And then the Lavi really changed it, and I decided that I'm not going to let anyone control my destiny anymore. And then I applied to a single business school in the United States, to Harvard.
I've heard of it.
I got in. So it was a very naive move at the time, if you think about it in retrospective, applying to only one business school. So my wife and my son, who was 15 months at the time, we packed 11 suitcases and came here.
Wow.
So coming to business school was part of this notion of I really want to transfer to business. I want to control my own destiny. And I'm going to become an entrepreneur. And I came to Silicon Valley in 1990. And then in 1995, I started my first companies with two other co-founders. It's a company called Net Dynamics. We created the market for application servers. The company was enormously successful, and then got acquired by Sun Microsystems, and then
Heard of
Sun
them.
got acquired by Oracle. And our work is known right now as a standard that is called J2EE, Java 2 Enterprise Edition.
Wow.
And then right after, I helped a friend of mine, Yoav Shoam, who was a professor at Stanford,
Yeah.
to start another company called Trading Dynamics. Trading Dynamics was a pioneer in business-to-business auctions.
Wow.
The company was in business for about 18 months and then got acquired by Ariba.
18 months?
18 months. Yeah, this was a sign of a time. Actually, it's a funny story because the company was going into beta, zero revenues. It was the height of the dot-com boom. And then we got a proposal to get acquired by Commerce One, and then a competition between Commerce One and Ariba on the business. And Ariba came in with an offer for $420 million to acquire the company.
After 18
and I always
months.
say the board was split at the kind of the time if to sell the company, because the management team came to the board and said, why should we compromise on this low ball offer from Ariba? If we get $500,000 in revenues next year, we're going to get a market cap of $4 billion. You have to remember, it's height of the kind of the dot-com. But nevertheless, we decided that it's a good opportunity to sell the the company.
Zach,
We bought
18
the stock.
months. I'm still at the 18-month stage.
Yeah, but you have to remember that I think this is always the difference between a watch and a compass. So in Silicon Valley, we have a lot of time tellers. So if you look at the time and you say what time it is, and people will tell you, well, it's 4 o'clock, and because of this, we can get $4 billion in market cap, next year. But if you have a compass, if you have a direction, if you know where you are going, if you have a little bit of a context, you realize that it's out of context, this this period of time. And by the way, it was a stock swap. So once we conclude the deal, it turned to be from $400 million to $720 million, and then it went over $1 billion for a period of time.
Wow.
And then I was also involved as the chairman of the board and also the first external money in an Israeli company called Conduit. Conduit became to be the first Israeli unicorn.
Yeah.
And then split it into a privately held company and also to a publicly held company through a reverse merger with a company called Perion Network. It's still traded on NASDAQ.
Yep.
Then my longest endeavor was with a company called Model N that we founded in '99. And that's a company that was in the business of revenue life cycle management for life sciences and high-tech companies. And it's a company that we took public on the New York Stock Exchange exactly 7 years ago. And it's still traded under the symbol Model N. And before the coronavirus, the company had a market cap of about $1.2 billion. It's a lot less right now. And 3 years ago, I hired the CEO. I overlapped with him for 3 months. And then I relinquished all my duties in the company as the CEO, as the chairman, as the board member, and moved to the next stage of my life. And, right now we have a family foundation and we call it the Dare Foundation.
The Dare Foundation. Okay, so we're gonna get there very soon. But first, so how much value did you really bring into the economy, into the world economy through these different endeavors? Do you have some number of, if you look at these different ventures and how much they brought into the economy, do you know about how much that is?
Well, I think you could you look at this from a lot of different different angle. But one of the areas that I was always important for me is really the quantity of jobs that you create in the economy, both the U.S. economy and the global economy. The nature of the business that you run right now is global in nature. And it's not just the companies that you create and the immediate jobs. It also goes beyond that in terms of the support functions that
the whole supply chain. Yeah.
And also in terms of working with the system integrators that help you to implement the software and the partnership that you create. And I believe that what I created over the last 25 years, or my companies created, was somewhere in the the tens of thousands of jobs that we get. And actually, it's a funny story. During the Obama presidency, the Obama presidency and administration was in the business of promoting entrepreneurship and promoting actually entrepreneurship by immigrants. And they wanted to recognize people. So I was lucky, I don't know, it's quite fortunate to be recognized by the White House as somebody they call a champion of change, which is entrepreneurs that enable to create jobs in in the economy.
No, that's
and that's very
unbelievable.
different than the current administration.
Unbelievable. And so with all of that, I mean, you do so many other things, and I just want to mention, I mean, we really got to meet really face to face at Burning Man of last year, where you also, enjoy culture and enjoy taking the time off, being with family, or there with your wife, and just enjoy, experiencing the world, right?
Yeah, so actually, I don't know if you want to speak about the details about where we met in the kind of event.
We'll leave that for another discussion.
I think we should keep here as a PG-13
A hundred
kind of
percent.
interview, but it was especially so over the last couple of years. Definitely became kind of a burner, and I love the event. And for me, it's not just the event; it became to be actually a way of life.
Yep.
We are a part of a larger camp, and it's really interesting because even now during the kind of the Corona epidemic, our camp ran basically almost a 7 by 24 Zoom kind of
Wow.
events, and we have every day we have a sound bath and meditation and camp dinners and parties and variety of kind of varieties. So I think it's a wonderful event, and it's a wonderful experience. And I think that actually I don't know what you take from Burning Man, but to me it's also for me it's a lesson in leadership, and about how you create a context, because it creates such an amazing bonding experience there. It removes the cynicism that we all have about people and kind of people nature. And you can see that if you work with even a large group of people, and you set basically values and the 10 principles,
Yep.
and you exemplify these these values, magic happens. And that's the same philosophy that you have about how you work and you create a culture in in a company.
Totally. No, one of the things that, I went there with my dad for quite a few times right now. And I remember when we got there the first year, I believe it was 2014, and we just stood there and we couldn't believe that there isn't a single piece of trash in the whole of the city. 80,000 people. Everything is moving around. It's not that people are still. People are moving around. Things are being thrown in the air. You look at the ground, there is nothing. It's spotless clean. And people take pride in the context that they managed to create in this Burning Man world. And so let's move from that to the company culture. And so you've got to build different companies with so many different employees, and you got to work in all different industries with all different types of people. What sort of your 2 cents on creating culture, and how do you go about doing it, and keeping yourself in check? So, it's one thing to be the CEO and the founder and to say, yeah, I'm building culture and I'm doing such and such. But then, there's the ground level where there's actually friction. So how do you actually keep yourself in check over there?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, I'm coming from a very methodological way of building building culture. And I think that, first of all, I believe that the culture needs to be explicit, not in kind of implicit.
Mm-hmm.
Because culture that is implicit, it's due to interpretation. And I also believe that there are two ways to create cultures. The first one is to create it from the outside in. And that's basically looking at making a statement about what the future you want to be in what the culture you want to be in the future.
Yeah.
And then you build the culture in order to kind of not to get there. But I'm a more believer that you need to look at this, from the inside out. And why is this? Because I believe that the foundation, the building blocks for culture is about values. And I think you really need to look in yourself and really understand what values you stand for. And why is this? Because we say that now as change is constant, right? That's
Yep.
the slogan that everybody says, change is constant. But I think that values are pretty constant too. I do not think that, my values has changed for a very, very long of time. So, fundamental beliefs that you have, for example, about integrity, about, taking risks, they do not change, all the time.
And how do you
So
make that explicit?
I think you really need to look, at yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that the founding team needs to go and really need to work with each other in order to understand what it is that you stand for. I also come from actually the belief that if the founding team do not believe in the same values, it's not a good actually founding team. So part of the process is that when you start a company and you have the founding team, you have to spend a lot of times about what it is that you are going to to stand for, and it's going to sit there for for a very long period of time, and so on. And then I think that, once you understand what values you stand for, you need to, write them down, and you need to think, how you communicate them.
Right. That was my
Now
next
you
question.
have to understand that, culture, in my mind, it's not for everyone. So for the people that you want to be in the company, it feels like home. But for other people, it feels like something that they don't belong to. And good cultures are like a boundary. It's like a border that they distinguish between insiders and outsiders. And why is this? Because when you make a hiring mistake in a company that has a distinct culture, it's immediately noticeable. And these people are basically leaving the company in a very short period of time. So when we look at the culture that we set, for the companies that I ran, it always came to 4 core values. The 4 core values came to the initials of DARE, D-A-R-E, where D stands for a dream, A for align, R for respect, and E for excel. And then I think it's really important that you're going to hire people that simplify the values. And how do you do this? I always interviewed about the first 250 people myself in all the companies that I ran. Because if you get the management team right, and if you get the first 200 people in the company to exemplify the values, then every magic happen. And then the other thing about the values is something that you need to ingrain in everything that you do in the company.
Right.
So we had questions that were related to the core values in the hiring process. It was part of the evaluation process of people. It was part of the promotion that we set for people. It was part of the compensation of people. We had bonuses that were related to meeting certain KPIs that were related to to the core values.
Wow.
And it's also something that you promote. For example, every year in the company, we had the process of nomination, evaluation, selection, and verification of people that exemplify the core values.
Wow.
And every year we selected them based on geographic and functions and so on. And then always there was one person that was selected as the one that exemplified the core values the best in the last year. And it was not just a minor process. There was one time a year when I stood in front of the company and there was dead silence. And this was when we announced the winner of the Spirit winners.
Wow.
And by the way, we gave all these people a pretty significant amount of stock in the company.
Okay, so it's not just the trophy. It's actually, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then, the other thing that is really important is that culture come into play when you need to make tough decisions.
Right. That's when you test it.
Not when everything is there. Because why is this? Because then you really need to make a trade-offs.
Definitely.
And some very painful trade-offs.
Definitely.
And I think these are really the events that really set the collective memory and the way of kind of behavior for kind of for the company.
No, it's Zach. It's incredible. I mean, we could go on this for hours. Unfortunately, we're
Yeah, we
almost
can.
done. But I have to get in a minute. How did you take this concept of Dare, DARE, and then transition it into a nonprofit movement where you're actually impacting a lot of different people right now? So tell me just a little bit about that.
So I'll tell you kind of a funny story. I was fortunate to serve in the special forces
Yep.
in the Israeli Defense Forces, and we had a slogan, and the slogan is "Who dares wins."
Who dares
It's actually
wins.
not something that was invented in Israel. It was invented actually by a British unit called the SAS. They had a legendary commander called David Sterling, known as the Ghost Colonel. In World War II, they invented the modern warfare for the special forces. They dressed as Germans, they stole German cars, they went into German camps, and so on. And our slogan was also "Who dares win."
Yep.
And if you think about consistency of values from the military through business and now through social impact, I also had a very long-term plan that I will be in business, and then I will turn into social entrepreneurship and give back what I got, experience and network and resources, and try to do it in a different context.
Yeah.
So the Dare Foundation is the same notion of trying to make some bold, social change in kind of in a different kind of environment, and encourage social entrepreneurs to go and to take some risky endeavors and try to make a difference. And that's what we are trying to do now in the social world.
No, Zach, it's incredible. So right before we finish, uh, it's something that I ask everybody, and I'm especially curious to hear your thoughts on this. What are three words that, looking back, you think best describe you, or that you think, the thousands of people that you've worked with and interacted with would describe you as?
And I think I just said them. I think who dares wins.
Okay, I think that's just perfect. Zach, thank you so
I
so
think I
much.
think I think what it is. I think that if you want to make a big difference, you need to dare. You need to you need to take a risk. You need to have the kind of the confidence
Yeah.
in kind of know yourself. And if you dare, you win.
No, I think it's amazing. Everybody can talk the talk, and when everything goes well and everybody's happy, then it's easy to act and to go forward. But when it's a little bit more challenging, and when you're facing these different tasks, especially as a founder and as a CEO, that's the real test. And I mean, I feel very very lucky for this relationship, and thank you for being a friend and a mentor, and for joining this project. Zach, just thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. Bye bye. Chag Sameach again.
חג שמח.